Welcome to Warehousing Unboxed, an IWLA podcast. I'm JC, Jay Capron. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at IWLA, and today we're going to talk about increasing HAZMAT cargo coming into the United States, what that means for our warehousing folks across the country. And we're going to talk to our guest, John Foshee, who's joining us from Porter Logistics. So he'll be on the show as we dive into this very important topic here on Warehousing Unboxed. But first, we'll take a break. We'll be right back after this. Customer expectations are accelerating. They want faster onboarding, real-time visibility, and on-the-channel capabilities that legacy warehouse management systems simply can't deliver. Whether you're wrestling with legacy systems or with spreadsheets, forward-thinking 3PLs are winning new business with Legiwa IO, the WMS designed specifically for warehouse-based 3PL operations. Enjoy location-based multi-tenant optimization, lightning-fast consumer onboarding in days, not months, AI-driven efficiency that unlocks your growth regardless of staffing levels. This isn't about upgrading your technology, it's about staying competitive when customers have more choices than ever. Stop adapting your WMS, get one that understands 3PLs. Legiwa IO, built for 3PL operations. Visit legiwa.com for your no-obligation demo. Welcome to Warehousing Unboxed, an IWLA podcast. I'm JC, Director of Strategic Initiatives here at IWLA, and happy to be back with another great podcast. We have a guest today, John Foshee, who's the president of Porter Logistics, and today we're going to talk about the increasing HAZMAT cargo that's been coming into the United States over the past few years, the changes that we've seen over the past few years, and what it means for us as warehouse providers and owners of warehousing all across the country. As you tune in this morning, we appreciate it. We're very excited about our upcoming convention and expo. If you haven't signed up, please sign up today. Great educational events all throughout the year here at IWLA. You can get all of this information at iwla.com. Our signature event is our convention and expo, and this year's theme is Mission Possible. Unlock your warehouse potential. And we have so many great guests lined up. It's a SPY theme. It's going to be so much fun in San Antonio. So join us for that. It's at the La Cantera. Recently was purchased by the Hilton Properties, and we are excited to be there March 29th through the 31st. And again, you can get more details. You could register today at iwla.com. And if you are looking for a booth, I recommend that you get on iwla.com right now and try to secure your booth, because I know that we're down to just a handful. And we do sell out on our booths every single year. And due to fire codes and other things, we can't make more space for booths. So when they're gone, they're gone. So if you would like a booth at our expo, please get online, contact Uriel Arroyo, and he'd be happy to tell you what we have left and get you signed up. And of course, we love our warehouse members who join too. We have a lot of great warehouse members joining us. We have new members who have never been to convention who have signed up. We're excited to welcome them in to the IWLA family. And one of our great members is joining us today. It's John Foshee. He's the president of Porter Logistics. John, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for the introduction. And if I may say, we've been to the IWLA convention many, many times. Great event, and we're looking forward to it in March as well.
Thanks. We appreciate hearing that, and it's so much fun. It's what's really interesting is you get all these people that are really direct competitors sometimes in the same exact geographic areas, and they're just talking shop and having fun and networking, and it's just I love it. It's an absolutely great event, great educational event. We've got some amazing speakers. So again, March 29th to the 31st, come and join us. John, so you're in Atlanta. Is that where you're based?
That's right. Yeah. So founded Porter Logistics about 9 years ago with my business partner, Robert Crump. Met in college way back in the day. We founded the business in Atlanta and just recently expanded into the Savannah, Georgia market. Operate about 1 million square feet between Atlanta and Savannah.
Great. And I got to ask, because it's like super cold, schools are canceled here in Chicago. What are you looking at for Atlanta? You have anything nicer than that going on?
Not really. We're actually prepping for an ice storm, probably something that would be pretty normal fare for a Chicagoan, but everybody's freaking out around here. We've got the grocery stores being emptied out. We've got people calling out of work. So getting ready for that weekend. But I used to live in Chicago actually in my mid 20s. Great town.
Oh, no kidding. I've got
Don't
to ask, where were you at when you were here?
I was bumping around, mostly kind of Old Town, Gold Coast. Was in my mid 20s, so made great enjoyment out
I
of that
love it.
city. Had an excellent time.
That is when I was spending time in Chicago as well. I went to UIC, and mid 20s, good time to be in Chicago. So
Yeah.
very cool, very cool. All right, well, John, let's dig into it. Let's talk about today's topic, hazmat cargo coming into the U.S. You mentioned you operate about 1 million square feet. That's part of what you do is hazmat cargo. Tell us about the increase in cargo you've seen, and what it's meant for your business, and what you've just in general what you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say that, chemicals, right, makes up about 40% of our business, probably our largest vertical overall, food being the other one. But a lot of interesting things going on in the chemical world right now. The first, right, is obviously the, presence of Asia, right? China, Taiwan, as well as India now, really in recent years, have, started to ramp chemical production. This used to be an industry heavily dominated by Europeans and the Americans. You have Dow Chemical on the American side, Univar on the American side from a distribution perspective, and then many of the largest chemical companies in the world sit in Germany. So people like BASF, Evonik, right, so on and so forth. The Chinese now, like many other industries, are starting to, you're starting to see many of their companies start to enter the top 10. The tariffs, right, have obviously had a big effect on the Chinese, and then India has started to, make buys in some of your bulk commodity chemicals, right, and they're coming at a very aggressive price point compared to what the Europeans and the Americans can provide. One of the other challenges that Europe is facing is energy. Chemicals is an extremely energy intensive process. You may remember the news 2 to 3 years ago where basically the pipeline of Russian gas had been severed right from Russia into Germany. And they're shutting down a lot of their nuclear, which is causing essentially a lot of the chemical manufacturing process to leave Europe. And the Americans, here in the U.S. are aggressively buying for a lot of that business. Just here in Georgia, BASF, who's the largest chemical company in the world, which is headquartered in Germany. Here in Georgia, they've got 3 manufacturing facilities. They're continuing to announce more. Evonik, has, plants in Charleston, Mobile, Alabama, and we're continuing to see basically Asia and Europe and America continue to sort of play this tug of war game, for kind of where the manufacturing base is going to continue, over the next decades.
Interesting. That's John Foshee joining us. He's the president of Porter Logistics. And so you mentioned you've been doing this, for a long time. So these changes, how do you stay ahead of that? I mean, the tariffs, I know that's such a question. It's tough to answer because they seem to be changing every day. But how do you as a business stay ahead of that?
Well, we really just focus on providing good service, but we've had to be very nimble, right, as it sort of pertains to a lot of our chemical customers. We had a Dutch chemical company in the facility, last February, March, a really nice account. They unfortunately had made the mistake of closing down a Charlotte, North Carolina plant, leveraging production completely to Taiwan. And then when President Trump took office, right, in January of 2025, the tariffs essentially made them non-competitive here in the U.S. And so that account, left our warehouse almost overnight, which was unfortunate. But you tend to see sort of a countervailing, effect on that, from other providers. So we've certainly had to stay nimble. I would say that in general, especially in the Southeast, that is, continuing to capture a lot of federal subsidy dollars in the form of, EV plants, solar manufacturing. These are processes that require a lot of base chemicals to actually create the goods themselves. And so there's been a little bit of a rising tide, whether it's produced here domestically or overseas. And us as an operator, we've certainly been able to benefit from that kind of organic kind of rise in the market.
That's interesting. Yeah, thanks for providing that real life example too of your customer. It just kind of shows how that's with the strike of a pen or a change, a legislative change, your business can completely either evaporate or it provides another opportunity, and someone's usually there to fill the gap, right?
Exactly, exactly. And thankfully, chemicals are such a kind of commodity of national strategic importance that one way or another, they're going to come into the U.S., whether they're imported here, produced here. 3PLs will still be required, right, to sort of manage that influx, right? You just need to be nimble, right, in terms of what you're supporting. You could be supporting local production. You could be, importing finished goods, but I think one of the most difficult things about hazmat is sort of the compliance piece, right? Which is what, I would advise anybody looking to get into this business to take very, very seriously.
Actually, that's where I was headed next too. I was going to ask you what that's like, because I mean, if you talk to somebody on the street and just say, you talked about your business, say that we store and we move hazardous chemicals, the first thing people think is safety, right? Like, how do you perform that job function safely? How do you do that in today's environment? And so, what are some of the challenges of that?
Yeah, so there's a few challenges there. Obviously, life and safety, right, is paramount. Before anyone, can work in any of our, facilities with chemicals, they'll have to, essentially go through a CFR 49, that's code for regulations, 49, section of sort of DOT regulations, which describes in great detail, how to read a safety data sheet, right, which is a overview of the chemical composition, risks, right, to health, potential incompatible materials. Training, right, is the absolutely number one thing, right? We work in a warehouse. There's heavy equipment flying around. Accidents are going to happen. A drum of something is going to get forked. It doesn't matter how careful you are. Over a certain time frame and at a high enough volume, it's just sort of mathematics, right? It's going to happen. So, on the life and safety side, you need to have people on staff who can take care of the spill. And then you also have to be very thoughtful on the front end, right? When you're trying to figure out what is within bounds, as it will. People think hazardous and chemicals, and they think, explosives or, something highly dangerous. The reality is that there is a continuum, right? I mean, lemon juice, right, is considered so acidic that in its concentrated form, it is considered, hazardous, quote unquote, but something that, an operator, right, wouldn't be very concerned about having in the warehouse. And then on the extreme other end of the continuum, right, something like nitroglycerin, and you have to be very thoughtful, about sort of what you take. For us here at Porter, we've got a lot of specialized capabilities like hazardous designated rooms that are explosion proof, that have suppression systems that use foam instead of water. And so, for every flammable, for example, we have an on-site chemical engineer who is essentially reading the safety data sheet, understanding the chemistry at a deep level, and making a call, right? Is our facility able to handle this? Is our staff able to handle this? And so we're also just very thoughtful, just at the very front end. We tell our clients no all the time, and no being, hey, is this something that you're rated for? Can you do it? We tend to err on the side of caution, right? And just say, hey, sorry, can't do that one, can't do this one. And that is another way to sort of manage risk, right? In addition to having a highly trained staff. And then third is really just the infrastructure, right? So I mentioned we've got our flame rooms with fire suppression systems. All of our forklifts are outfitted with what we call beluga forks, aka forks that have a blunt tip, right? So that if you were to run into an IBC or a drum, you would merely effectuate a dent, right, as opposed to piercing it, right, and having a chemical spill on the floor. And then essentially all of our highest paid and most experienced operators work in the chemical warehouse. So it's treated as a privilege internally. You usually start out in our general commodity warehouse, bottled water, that sort of thing, with the stakes are a lot lower, right? So if you make a mistake, No one's going to cry over a couple pallets of spilled water. And then over time, right, as they, prove their metal, their incident rate is at an acceptably low level, then we move them into the chemical warehouse and sort of raise their pay, commensurate with kind of their skill level.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, what a big difference between, puncturing a container of water, like you said, or nitroglycerin, right? So it makes sense that you have your best of the best employees as they get better and more skilled as operators to move up and become in those higher paid positions where the stakes are higher. So really interesting stuff. That's John Foshee joining us. He's the president of Porter Logistics. Time for a break, so we will take a quick break and we'll be back with more after this. This is Warehousing Unboxed, an IWA podcast. We've been talking about increasing hazmat cargo coming into the United States with John, and we'll be back. A few more minutes left of the program, and we'll be back right after this. Customer expectations are accelerating. They want faster onboarding, real-time visibility, and omnichannel capabilities that legacy warehouse management systems simply can't deliver. Whether you're wrestling with legacy systems or with spreadsheets, forward-thinking 3PLs are winning new business with Legiwa IO, the WMS designed specifically for warehouse-based 3PL operations. Enjoy location-based multi-tenant optimization, lightning-fast consumer onboarding in days, not months. AI-driven efficiency that unlocks your growth, regardless of staffing levels. This isn't about upgrading your technology, it's about staying competitive when customers have more choices than ever. Stop adapting your WMS, get one that understands 3PLs. Legiwa IO, built for 3PL operations. Visit legiwa.com for your no-obligation demo. Welcome back to Warehousing Unboxed, an IWA podcast. I'm JC, Jay Capron, and I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at IWA and the host of this podcast. Always love to chat with folks, different members doing different work all across the country. We have over 400 warehouse members across North America doing all types of different work. And today we've been talking specifically about those folks who deal with regulated goods, chemicals, and we've been talking to John Foshee, who's the president of Porter Logistics. And John, we were talking the last segment about the increasing hazmat cargo coming into the U.S. And I thought now we'd just turn to maybe some value-added services, some other things that maybe you're doing or that you've seen in the industry, some changes, some things that people might be able to take advantage of with the changes we've seen in our global climate.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, JC. So, for other 3PLs, out there in terms of if they're, interested in getting into this market, the customers are demanding obviously the, storage, right, and handling, your pallet in, pallet out, drum picking, all those sorts of things that would be very familiar to a 3PL operator. There's a few other things, right, that customers are demanding in this market, and that is on the value-added services side. So a good example of that, right, could be repackaging. And so what I mean by repackaging is taking a chemical, and let's just assume it's liquid, from a bulk format, and that could be a tank wagon, an ISO tank, a rail car, right, something where you're talking about potentially 80,000 gallons, right, for example, and then being able to transfer that into something that's more consumable by an end user, right? And so that could be transferring a chemical into an ISO tank, into a drum, into a pail. Essentially, these manufacturers and distributors and these buyers, they get huge economies of scale, right, by buying it by the rail car, right, or buying it by these bulk formats. And so the ability for them to buy in that quantity and have a user be able to, not a user, but a 3PL sort of partner, be able to effectuate that transfer right into something that their customers want to buy and the quantities that they want to buy. That's something that we've moved into very, very successfully. Now, this does have a higher level of risk, a higher level of technical capability, We do have a chemical engineering staff who's deeply experienced in this. And like I was mentioning earlier, we're very thoughtful about what we do and we don't do. We don't transfer or repackage flammables, for example, because of the permitting required, the infrastructure investment required. But for certain hazard classes, certain commodities, we've made that investment, and it's been a huge value add for our customers, right? To be able to do all of this within the same building. There's quite a bit of dislocation in the supply chain where a lot of customers are having to buy in bulk, ship it 300 miles to get it repackaged and then ship it back to get to the end customer's hands. So being able to be that one-stop shop is something that we've been really, really focused on. And, we talked about liquids, but there's also a big opportunity in solids as well. So your resins, your powders, your things like that, again, is something that, I think is something that's being demanded by the market.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, right? Is that the customer gets a benefit by buying on scale, then they have a huge amount, and that you're storing it at your facility, but those customers down the line don't want that much, right? So somebody needs to repackage it and put it in a smaller amounts, and there's an opportunity right there. So that makes a whole lot of sense. So I know our fulfillment forum, we talked about a lot of those different ways that people are getting very creative and finding ways to, you have these customers who have their goods in your warehouse. There's opportunities sometimes to do that, to either split up, repackage, relabel, and do these different things to provide more value for your warehouse. So really interesting stuff there. And I guess the last thing we'll talk about is just regionally. You're in Atlanta, right? So I know you talked about some changes that you've seen. Did you want to talk a little bit about that, about the regions across the U.S. and what changes you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the Southeast has definitely been very, very strong. You've had a number of large infrastructure bills, passed recently. The CHIPS Act, or Chips and Science Act, the infrastructure bill, subsidies during the Biden administration that has spurred, quite a bit of plant investment that is all starting to get delivered now. Georgia, luckily, where we happen to be, has been, I think, the number one recipient of federal dollars, and so the construction of these sort of new age manufacturing facilities like in EVs, in solar panels, you're seeing ecosystems of suppliers, right? Chemicals being one of many, starting to spring up around these manufacturing locales. So, you can think about what other regions are getting it, getting some of these dollars. Texas, right, has been a great market. The Southwest, Taiwan Semiconductor Corp, and others going into Arizona. We're seeing quite a bit of demand for the West. The challenge is not, California makes it very, very difficult, right, to get a HAZMAT permit certified. So you're starting to see places like Nevada, Arizona, and some of those border states, Las Vegas, Reno, so on and so forth, benefit from that. Most people don't realize, Las Vegas is only 2.5 hours, right, from LA. So if you're bringing in a chemical right into the port of LA Long Beach, and the operators that operate in Southern California are full, many folks are choosing to open up a location in Las Vegas. And then same with Reno, right, for its proximity to the San Francisco port, as a means of kind of getting around that California regulatory environment. So we're seeing the West, sort of ex-California, I would say, starting to get a lot of that benefit as well.
And John, I didn't ask you to do this, but you really put that up on a tee for us because we have our California chapter meeting coming up. We're taking a tour of the port of Long Beach. We're going to be meeting with some officials, and then next month in February, I believe the 24th and 25th, we're meeting in Sacramento with the California chapter to talk to legislators because we know how difficult it can be to do business in that state. And so we're gonna have those opportunities, and then our legislative fly-in to DC is in May. So we hope that those who are members who would love to have their voice heard, have their voice amplified through IWLA, it's a great opportunity to come, whether it's to the Sacramento fly-in if you do business specifically in California, or if you do business all across North America and you want to have your voice heard in Washington. We certainly encourage you to join us for our fly-in in DC. Registration's open for that. I should mention too, we're really excited that we have registration open for all of our events for 2026 on our website at iwla.com. So if you're curious and you want to go to our marketing workshop next, I believe that's in September. It's up and it's available, so you can register today for that. So lots of events throughout the year. I had to use that opportunity because you talked about the challenges of California business, and we are at the forefront working with our lobbyist FJK, and we will have more to come on that as we continue to fight some of those regulations and some of the things that make it so difficult to do business in the state of California. John, any final thoughts as we get ready to wrap up?
No, and I mean, the last thing on that California topic, I say that, but if you talk to any of the incumbents, right, the people that have been grandfathered in, they are perfectly fine with the way things are right now because they are full. Nobody else can get a permit, and so if they had their druthers, they'd probably keep things the way they are. But no, if you're already there and you've been there for the last 50 years and already have the permit, you're sitting in the catbird seat.
Tough to get anything new, though, huh?
tough to get anything new. So, but no, we appreciate you having us on, JC. We have found our association with IWLA enormously productive. We have found a lot of peers who have continued to be very, very helpful to us. Doug Sibla out of Ohio, at People Services, Brett Mears out of Houston, and many others have been a huge help. So we've enjoyed our time, and we're looking forward to being members for many, many years to come.
Thanks, John. We appreciate that. Yeah, you just named a couple of IWA All-Stars, and we have a lot of those. And that's one of the coolest things, again, about being a member is the networking, to be able to talk to other professionals who are doing, similar work to you, and a great opportunity is our convention. So I'll end on that. We hope to see you. You will be there, John, so hopefully you can tell people as you meet John, tell them you heard him on the podcast. I know you and I are going to take some time and carve out some time to talk during convention as well, John. So I appreciate the time today, and good topic, and we'll talk to you at convention. Sound good?
Absolutely. Can't wait, JC.
Thanks. That's John Foshee, the president of Porter Logistics. This has been Warehousing Unboxed, an IWA podcast. Main topic of the show today was the increased HAZMAT cargo that's been coming into the United States, and just some of the geopolitical changes and things that have been happening, and how to stay nimble. That's what John told you about, and it was a great show. I'll be back for another podcast here as we continue on with the winter season. We encourage you to check out all of our educational events at iwla.com. That's iwla.com. For John Foshee, I'm Jay Capron, JC, and we'll talk to you next time on Warehousing Unboxed.